2025 was a weird year for Yu-Gi-Oh! I think there were some highlights like Justice Hunters, the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship in Paris, France was pretty cool with the exhibit, and I think Konami did a better job addressing floodgates than most years, although there are still a few lingering around. But 2025 had a lot of bad as well. It was a terrible year from the perspective of a collector, vendor, or local game store owner, as the sealed product was plummeting in price. Malice Raziel format probably went on a little too long, and going back to product, there were a lot of delays and quality control issues. But I think 2026 will be a good year for Yu-Gi-Oh! And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons as to why. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. Now let's get started. If you're a Gooner, you're going to love Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2026 because Red Eye's Dark Dragoon is going to be everywhere. We're going to get Maze of Muertos in February, and this will contain new Dark Magician cards in Dark Magician of Destruction and the Gaze of Timaeus. These are going to change the deck and Spellcaster decks drastically. D-Mod requires a Dark Magician and lighter Dark Monster to fusion summon, but you're usually going to be using the alternative condition, which allows you to banish a level 6 or higher Dark Spellcaster you control the turn a spell card has been activated. On summon, D-Mod can search a card that mentions Dark Magician, and the card you'll be searching for is the Gaze of Timaeus, a Timaeus spell that actually mentions Dark Magician, making it searchable. It can shuffle DM from the field or grave into the deck to summon a fusion monster that lists it as material, although it is banished during the end phase of the next turn. These cards work perfectly together as D-Mod is treated as Dark Magician on the field and in the graveyard, so you can shuffle it back and summon out Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. In addition, this is super splashable and almost any deck can bridge into Dragoon. The Diabellstar engine gets you into Dragoon and the Azumina package. Shining Sarcophagus can easily bridge into it with the Dark Magician Girl retrain, and Primite was already a popular choice to play with DM, but now Primite Roar is a 1-card starter. Even Ready Fusion and Sandwich can bridge into Dragoon. We could actually see Dark Magician and Blue Eyes be viable at the same time, but I'd be prepared to see a lot of these three in 2026. The next big thing to look out for is the Genesys format YCS. To quickly summarize if you're unaware, Genesys is another way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Except there's no links or pendulums. Every card has a point value and your main side and extra deck cannot exceed the point cap you're playing under, which is usually 100 points. Konami closely watches the format to tweak point values for cards that are too powerful and overused, and most staples, floodgates, and FTK enablers have high point values assigned. But back to the YCS. A YCS dedicated to an alternative format shows how serious Konami are about Genesys. And in addition, the blog posts are a decent read if you enjoy the format, and I would suggest checking them out. It really shows how hard they're working, and it's nice to see that at least someone cares about this game. A lot of people do see Genesys as advanced format turned down a notch, which it kind of is, but it provides a lot of intrigue with the point cap and forces Yu-Gi-Oh! Players to make real concessions when deck building. And these concessions lead to a more diverse meta, although like any game, a hierarchy will form. Radiant Typhoon seems to be the best deck as of recording, but there are definitely other paths to success, and if it does get out of hand, the Genesys team will likely raise its point values, putting it back in check. I think the YCS is pretty risky from Konami, but in a good way, and I hope it's successful, because if it is, they'll take more risks with the game in the future. Looking at product in 2026, I'm very excited for First Protocol. If you're a Dragon Link player like me, this might be the set for you. New Rocket support including a normal summon in Rocket Loader, a new fusion spell in Double Trigger, and a new Link 5 boss monster are big additions to the deck. The new Link 5 is an Omni Negate that can't be tributed and can summon a Link 4 Boral from your extra deck during the battle phase. Also, if you're a Springens fan like me, Tri-Brigade Springens Kit and Gung Ho Springens are game changers. Kit is a free special summon if you control a Springen, and can summon a Springen from grave if it's sent to the grave. And Gung Ho can summon Therian King Regulus from the deck, making the end board stronger and more resilient to hand traps like Droll and Nibiru. But the Albaz lore continues a little further with Fallen of the White Dragon and Ecclesia of the Black Dragon. I'm not a big branded player, but these cards are obviously good. Fallen of the White Dragon is always treated as Fallen of Albaz, making it super accessible, and it has a summoning effect which is similar to the condition of Extraziel, being able to dump an Albaz fusion to summon itself. And once it does, it can summon an Ecclesia monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And its counterpart, Ecclesia of the Black Dragon, is also very powerful. It can banish itself to summon a monster that mentions Albaz or is Albaz from your deck or grave, and when it's in the grave, it can shuffle itself, a fusion, and a card on the field into the deck. We're also going to see the debut of a new Synchro archetype in Elven Notes, as well as support for archetypes like Magnet Warriors, BES, and Archfiends. But last but not least is the new Chase card and staple, Forbidden Crown, effectively making one monster on the field useless for the entire turn, and it doesn't target. But back to the topic of Albaz, we're going to get more Animation Chronicle episodes in 2026. We just got the first episode of the Charmer story, and to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan, but it should get more interesting as they continue. But the first thing that comes to mind to me, the continuation of the Fallen and Virtuous story. I don't have any inside info, but I'm pretty confident that they'll circle back around and finish the story. I feel like there's a lot more to explore and more archetypes that could get support, but if they choose not to, I think the next story after Charmers should be Six Samurai. It's a fan favorite, it has a strong story, and would make a pretty cohesive structure deck. And the final thing to be excited about in 2026 is, of course, the Overframes. The Limit Over collection in the OCG is going to introduce 12 retrains of protagonist and rival monsters, in addition to reprints of existing cards. The standouts to me are Dark Magician the Pharaoh Servant, Warlord Liberator Dragon, and Starving Venom Fusion Dragon of the 4 Heavenly Dragons. And they're fairly generic, so you can play them even if you're not an anime deck enjoyer. The other big thing is that these Overframes will also be printed in the standard card style, so if you don't pull the full art, you can still play the card, and it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg. But I think the biggest aspect of these Overframes is that it could make Yu-Gi-Oh! A little more collectible. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Yu-Gi-Oh! Product is in the toilet, and extended arts could be the first step to changing that. These products should have value beyond their competitive hype, and it should attract collectors, which is big because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has historically struggled catering to multiple audiences, and it's only going to ramp up when they're introduced into main series sets, starting with Chaos Origins in the OCG. 4 Overframes per set. As long as they make smart decisions with the cards they choose, this is an easy win for Konami and the community. We're getting our first batch in the TCG with Rarity Collection 5, although it won't feature the retrains. I'm pretty excited regardless, and the Overframes of Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, Dominus Purge, Dominus Impulse, and Super Poly look pretty good. Overall, I think 2026 will be a good year for Yu-Gi-Oh! But I hope these improvements are just the start. Overframes, the Animation Chronicle, and Genesys have so much more room to grow, and I can't wait to see how they do. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, and consider subscribing to the channel. What are you most excited about for Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2026? Leave it in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.